This is Daybreak Live. Good morning to you, Yemi.
Good morning, Archer. Good morning.
This very cold morning. I mean, for a lot of persons, they might still be on bed, but you know.
I don't think some persons are cold, even in this studio, as we speak. All right, so let's start this morning. What do we have? A coup plot trial. Cleric says 10 million naira received was for prayers. So when that news broke about the denial of the coup in the first place last year, I just knew we are going to be on this topic for a while, because I remember the Minister of Defense on national TV, when he was asked why he was denied at first, he said it was not a denial. It was because they wanted to make sure that, you know, they carry out the investigations properly to ensure that they don't pick up somebody who has not done anything. And then later they came out to say, okay, because initially they said it was an act of indiscipline amongst the military guys, but later they came out to say indeed it was an attempted coup. And ever since then, some persons were arrested. And I remember a few weeks back, we were talking about how the wives of these officers, their children, young kids, you know, were protesting, you know, in Abuja and even outside of Abuja to say, okay, release our husbands or take them to court, charge them, let them face their case, let them plead their case if they're guilty, and then let them face the law. So at the end of the day, the investigations continued, and then we are seeing names. As a matter of fact, there's even the name of this former Bayelsa governor, Timothy Receiver, who is, I don't think is currently in the country as we speak because of them. I'm not sure whether he's linked to the issue or not. And then basically this cleric, his name is Sheikh Bukar Kasim Goni, told the Federal High Court in Abuja that the 10 million naira allegedly traced to his account was money given to him. He said the money that they saw that was transferred in October 2024 was given to him for prayers and for charity purposes, and is not linked to any attempt to any attempt to overthrow the president or the government. But then he also said, you know, quite a number of things that I also want us to talk about. And then responding to that, you know, the judge was asking him, okay, if you say that this money has nothing to do with the attempted coup, what about other monies that were traced to your account? Because he said that this person, I think the most popular person on this case, that's Colonel Mohammed Maji, he said this man came to him for personal prayers and then the need to solve the challenges around his career, basically promotion issues that, you know, his promotion has been delayed for a long while, and he came for prayers. But then some monies were also found in his account as far back as March 2023, months before the issues is cited, you know, happened. And then there's a 10 million naira payment that was made in October 2024. And investigators also questioned messages and discussions, because I mean, it's not just about the money that can be traced to your account. It's about the kind of messages, it's about the kind of discussions, and then there were also references to access and work tools. And of course, which they said suggested deeper coordination beyond prayers. And away from that, there's also this Aso Villa worker that was also caught, that was also, you know, asked to come and speak on the matter. And then he said he had no idea that they were trying to overthrow the government. He said he just met with this corner Margie few times, and then there were times that he sent him 100,000, 120,000, but then there was a time that he was given a bag of money that contained about 8.8 million naira. And then he said he had to deposit the money in a particular bank. And so it was at that point when he received that huge amount of money that he was, you know, concerned to say, why are these people bringing this huge amount of money to me? But at the end of the day, he's trying to plead with the people that employed him to say, I had no idea they were trying to overthrow the government. But then the most interesting aspect of this entire case is the fact that, you know, the major suspect have been able to submit that indeed they were trying to overthrow the government. And so investigations are still ongoing to ensure that these people, you know, face the law, because about 13 count, you know, charges was filed against, you know, the major defendant of this particular case. So it speaks to how porous the military is basically at this point in time. But then I say this all the time, that the worst democratic government is better than any military government. So it doesn't matter what Nigeria is going through, it doesn't matter, you know, what the economy is saying, it doesn't matter, you know, insecurity, it doesn't matter things like that. We really cannot subject ourselves to another military rule. Because if you look at majority of those that are clamoring for military in Nigeria, if you check the age, you see that they are mostly youth, especially around 25 to about 35 years. And then looking at these people, most of them, even if they were alive at that time, they had no idea what was going on in the military era. So because the elderly ones will always tell you, do not clamor for military era, because, you know, it was a lot to actually undo at that point in time. And then part of the things that were done at that time is still affecting Nigeria as we speak. So basically, you know, it's a good one that investigates investigations are done in a proper manner to ensure that these people are brought to book. I think this would deter any other person, even after this regime, even after this tenure, to say we want to plan a coup. Because even part of what I read is that this major person in the case, Margie, he said that, he's not happy with what is going on in the government, and that's why he wants to overthrow the government. So good luck to those on top of this matter to ensure that, these people are brought to book, and of course justice is served on this particular case.
Well, I think we'll start from history, and I'll take what happened in 1976, the coup in the country, Nigeria. If you follow how it unfolded, you will find non-state actors, people that are not partisan, people that are not political, just civilians who were used as a means to get to as a means to an end, in a sense, to say, because the basic point is that nobody will have to look for a pastor or a cleric to say there's a money that's entering into your account. And this is also important because Nigeria is a very, like we say, a religious country in that sense. So it might just be a way to just pass through or make money pass through some hands just to ensure that it gets to where you want it to get. So it could be a thing, and that's why I think this prosecution is, well, should we say this questioning is important as of now, because we've seen also, I was trying to do a bit of study, I discovered even in countries that are currently embattled, or the ones we have been overthrown by a coup, one thing you would discover is that every of those people involved in a coup were not always, and usually not always, military people. A good number of them would be non-state actors, other kind of people who just were used to do whatever they want to do. So that could be why there's a lot of questions for going in now to say you were involved in this. Even because the case of treason or this kind of cases is that whether or not you say, or you were caught in the act to say I was doing it, all that matters is, did you know about this? So it could be a complicit case to say, if you knew and you did not say something, you are also punishable under the law. So that's exactly the conversation. But the broader implication for this now is going to be that if he is found guilty, according to the court, what will happen to NGOs, faith-based organizations, is that there's going to be more scrutiny. And going forward, if you might need to present your bank accounts, I mean, for every now and then when there's a situation, they might request for that. And that will put a strain on faith, because you understand some of the faith-based organizations are usually done in a way that the way they do their businesses is not something that should be open. Well, in a lot of ways, to say the accountability might be from the church management or the mosque management, but not like the generality of the people or the court of law. But now, it can go from that point to now saying every offering, every zakat that you send to your mosque, you have to tag it. And so once they see that, they have to vet, how much is this? Why is it coming at this time? People collecting their salary, why do you go? And then there'll be a lot of investigation into faith and religious organizations. And that is not a very good one. But again, if this comes to be that we have to get the truth out of the people that are plotting a coup, I mean, why not? We'll have it. But I just wanted to also add to the issue that, just like you mentioned, then the bank transfers was exceeding 10 million naira, and it wasn't just for once. I think, like you also, like the story we've seen, it started March 2023, and that's the thing to consider, that if you said he came to you for prayers for promotion, and then he's sending 10 million. Someone who needs promotion is sending you 10 million, sending you another money, and then you want to say that, what kind of promotion are you really saying, or are you talking about? So it will be for the court that this is a case of complicit. You knew about this and you didn't tell anybody. By the way, I think it's also good to say it this way, that oftentimes when we blame people to be parts of something, to be complicit in a case, why don't we look out for, because I'm trying to look, okay, so what if it was me that someone sent money to hold and probably did not give me the full details? What would I have done? So so this is what I'm trying to say. There should be a whistleblower channel, right? A very coordinated, maybe that everybody in the country would know, or faith-based, or organizations like non-government organizations would know that if this is coming at a time and you feel you are not very okay with it, you can make a submission to this authority, and then they will take it. Because I think for one now, if I'm a pastor, for example, and someone sends me 10 million, says it's for prayers, or should you just say, just hold the money there? I might not know where to go because because you just expect people to know. And it's funny. I know oftentimes, I've also said this a lot of times, that we want, what we want to tell the people, but we don't tell the people how to know the things they should know. So what I'm trying to say is, especially in education as well, we are so bold and so forward about what we want to say, what we want to tell, what we want to teach about, but we are not so sure, or we don't make enough effort to go and do our bidding to say, this is how I want you to take this thing. So because for now, if you say people are supposed to not be complicit, people are supposed to report incidences like this, where should they? Should they go to the EFCC? How sure are they that the person that they are reporting would not eventually win the case and then call them out for something that there should be a guideline for people to say, I saw this money in my account and I know it belongs to this person, and I've called him and he said I should put it there. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, just so there's anything, my hands are pure, my hands are clean, right? This is the case for me. And I think it's a good way. If we have those channels where I can lodge my complaints and say, this is what I've seen and this is what I think is happening. Can you help me with this? And then they do a private investigation, and then you'll be free eventually, because they say, oh, he reported the case, although maybe the money is still in his account, but he reported the case. So that would exclude him from all of these sentences now we have from this issue. But I'll also maybe point a few fingers to some of the issues. Margie, like we said, has been maybe in a way said to be one of the major players in this coup attempt, and you want to say that if the money was from Margie, then maybe every other person now, and because it has to be a very conclusive investigation because Margie could have sent money to a good number of people. Now, are they going to call all of those people out? Right? And because I understand while they're doing their investigation, it's very necessary to check every account, every money, every financing, because there's no coup that has survived in any country or that's even failed in any country that did not have the involvement of financiers. So beyond Margie, are there people who actually supported this move? Are there people who are faceless, who probably gave in? Because I'm not sure Margie would have all of this money enough by himself, for himself. Someone who is looking for promotion, according to his cleric, would have all of these financial resources to say, I'm putting all this together to ensure that we overthrow this government. I'm so sure beyond Margie, there are other people. And if we want to do a conclusive, comprehensive investigation, let it also be that every of those people to are called to question, let them come to court and answer their cases, right? Because let's not just take it from the angle of you send money to somebody or you didn't send. Let's take it on the broader view to say, so beyond Margie, or to probably question Margie, beyond Margie, who are the people? Because I don't have the facts, but I can assure you that if we really get the names of those people involved, I'm so sure there will be 1, 2, 3 prominent persons in this country who donated to that cause. We know Timmy Silva, like we said, and some other persons. But I know beyond the list that was released, right? There's still a list that is not released. And that's one of the things we are saying, that yes, let's have it clear. Let's have it so, because I would also say that, combined with security, intelligence, and communication evidence, it's so sure that the defense money that he said was for prayers, it's plausible. We can just agree with that to say, okay, well, because we understand the Nigerian situation, especially faith-based organizations and how politicians can just donate to a church. I think there was a particular church, I can't remember the name of the church, that rejected the governor's offer for one of their conferences.
Pollination.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, was it Dunamis, right?
Yeah, Dunamis.
Anyway, so he was offered, and then he said, you know what, we have more than enough to do this particular meeting. Thank you, we appreciate this. And then he made it open to the public that this was what happened, and we appreciate the governor for trying to help us. And I think faith-based organizations should also take a step of faith to say, if you need money, you can trust God. But sometimes having coalition with politicians or with people in power, you have to be very careful because you don't want to soil your hands. People look up to faith-based organization leaders. They look up to our religious clerics and pastors. They need to be sure that your hands are clean. Because I don't want my pastor, for example, to be in a lawsuit. How do I even pray? Because I'm not even sure. There's a sense of distrust that can come from there. They're supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to lead the people aright. And so if someone who is supposed to lead me aright is found complicit in this kind of case, what do I say? How do I even go about praying about it? But I just want to say again that, the case is not only about the 10 million naira, but it's also about the many things, many folds of it, to say religious influence versus political power. Well, I'm not saying that he should have rejected the money. But I'm also saying that, one, my point is, let the government be clear on the channels to whistleblow. Let's not just think everybody will come online. It's even a bad place to say, I received this money online, I'm making a video. Okay, so I'm live, guys. I received money. I know that's a very funny way to do things, right? But there should be a channel. I know we have the EFCC, I know we have the ICPC, but can we have a structure that any whistleblower would be able to just say, by a phone call, just explain, this is the situation, please help me out, I'm in this situation, and help. And that's, I think that's one of the ways to go about this.
All right. So I think you mentioned that, people involved in this coup attempt are not majorly military guys. We have
We might have a lot of them that are not.
Politicians. And then I remember that a certain Nollywood filmmaker, Stanley Amadi, was also detained over this particular matter, because I think they will need the expertise of all the persons across all the sectors to actually carry this out. They cannot do it alone at the end of the day. And then speaking to the Aso Rock worker that also came out to say, I had no idea. I mean, money was being transferred to you without doing so much, that huge amount of money. Let's even forget about the 100K, 120K. What about the 8.8 million naira? I mean, that's a lot. You should ask questions, about that. And then he said he didn't even know that this man, this Colonel Maji, was a military guy. He had no idea about it. So I feel like when you begin to receive that kind of amount of money, you should do proper investigations, because you don't want to be found, involving yourself in something that can actually, mar your destiny later in life. And basically, and one more thing is the fact that the court is also accusing them of failing to report the knowledge of the alleged plots and providing indirect support by not alerting security authorities. Just like you mentioned, even if at all, at the end of the day, you were not part of it, but you heard about it and you didn't think to inform the authorities, you're also complicit according to the law. Because even the last coup attempt that we've seen over time, even people that were not actively part of the coup, but then they had a knowledge of it and then they did not report to the authorities, were also, charged to court. And of course, all defendants were able to plead not guilty when they arraigned on April 22, and they remain in custody of the Department of SSS pending trial. And of course, let's also talk about the former Bayelsa State Governor and ex-Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. It's not just anybody. He's served, in several capacities before. And of course, people are asking questions, and then they want to know if indeed he was truly involved in the matter. And then basically, just like I mentioned, this might actually, deter other persons from planning to overthrow the government, because recently the coup in Benin and Nigeria was a key factor in helping them quell that coup. So what happens if we cannot solve this case in our own country? It doesn't speak well of Nigeria at all, and that's why these people are trying their best to make sure that these individuals who have been able to admit that indeed we were trying to overthrow the government, because some persons at some point thought it was just propaganda. Do you remember there was even a case that we heard? I think some major newspaper outlet did not actually publish it, but it was like a rumor online that one cook, a particular chef in the presidential villa, was trying to poison the president.
Yes, it was.
And then it was a rumor at that time, and then people were beginning to ask questions that if indeed this is true, then there's a problem. Because if something like that is being planned within Aso Rock that is supposed to be the most secure place in Nigeria as a country, and then something is wrong. So I want to believe that if at all it was a rumor, the presidential villa, this administration will find a way to just make sure that, something like that would not happen. Because I remember there was this Kuje prison attack. And then if you look at the location of Kuje prison, it's very close to Aso Rock. And then these guys were able to break into the prison, rescue some persons. And then it speaks to the fact that even Aso Rock must be careful. And then this is not the first time, about twice now, these guys have come out to threaten that they want to attack Aso Rock. And then some Nigerians were saying, it's not possible. We are not supposed to say it's not possible. We're just supposed to make sure that it doesn't happen. And that's one problem that I have with this country when it comes to our security operatives. We are more reactive than proactive. And then at the end of the day, when something happens, and that's why we're running Etasketa, then the army will be releasing, statements, about 4 statements in a day and things. And we don't have to wait for something to happen. We can actually prepare for it. And that's why countries like US are miles ahead. I mean, they see it before it happens, and then they nip it in the bud. And that's why we need to learn from them, basically.
Well, I think going forward now, the way this issue is being attended to will determine a lot of things. And we usually say, and it's very true, that Nigeria is very important in the continent. So if this kind of thing does not get the due investigation and the due result or resolution, it might weaken the trust of people. It might also, in a way, incite another chance for some people. But if it's very strong, it will mean that the government, the administration, and then the country Nigeria does not in any way support, or will never in any way support, in any way, form, or mean, support any coup attempts in the country. And I think that's one thing to do for this present administration, especially the court, to say, yes, this is what they should do, and they should not really have a repeat of this issue as we have it. But again, everything said and done, we need a lot of things to happen when it comes to these kind of things. We need something as clear as, you know, evidence-based, should we say jurisdiction, or not exactly, maybe jurisprudence, right? To say evidence-based investigation, and let it be so clear to the eyes of the public that this is the case, this person was found complicit, and this, let it not just be an inconclusive investigation, let it be a very conclusive one that everybody will get to know this is the situation. I hope someday we'll not have a repeat of this in the country.
Exactly. So before we actually move on to another thing, we also must ensure that, you know, at all, if at all you find yourself in this kind of situation, you must ensure that you report to the necessary authorities to just, you know, take out yourself from the entire equation and make sure that you're not found complicit. Because if you check videos online of the wives and children of these guys, I mean, they're complaining so bitterly. One was even wailing, you know, profusely. But at the end of the day, they will not release the husband to you know, the husband will have to face the law, because at the end of the day, something was reported, and then proper investigations must be carried out. What you say?
Exactly. I mean, if for all we care, we do not have complete, comprehensive investigation, then why do we have the court of law? Why do we have those institutions in place? That's their job, and that's why we need them to also do what they should do. But of course, I think it's a good place to draw the conversation to a pause for now, and then move on to something else.